and Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Wachukwu, and these are the top stories. 17 killed as gunmen invade Plateau community. Mary Odili denies influencing judges to favor Tinubu. Sarab threatens to sue Akpabio over senator's holiday allowance. And Niger's military junta forms a new government. Details now. The world news begins with at least 17 persons being killed in a fresh attack by gunmen in Heipan community in Barakin-Ladi local government area of Plateau State. VOP News gathered that the attack occurred around 1 a.m. when most residents of the community were asleep. The attack is coming 3 days after a commuter who was returning from Kara, a cattle market in Bukuru, was attacked and killed in the Haipeng area. The Birom Youth Molders Association had on Tuesday condemned the killing of the commuter, explaining that the attack was purely an act of criminality by enemies of peace. The spokesperson of the Operation Safe Haven, a multi-security task force maintaining peace in the state, Captain Ola James, who confirmed the latest incident, said troops of the operation had been deployed to the community. Mr. John Mark Palm, the state youth leader of the People's Democratic Party in the Northern Zone, who also confirmed the incident, said he had lost his brother. Now, in judicial matters, a former justice of the Supreme Court, Mary Peter Odili, has denied influencing the Presidential Election Tribunal to favor President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. She denied negotiating with the judges handling the presidential election petition to favor Tinubu. Mary Odili was reacting to a publication accusing her of negotiating a pathway for President Bola Tinubu and that she meets regularly with the Appeal Court and the Supreme Court justices in that regard. Condemning the allegation, the retired judge described the allegation as malicious and full of falsehood. In a statement by her media assistant Felix Anebeli, the retired justice insisted that the allegations were aimed at smearing her integrity and solid reputation. I want to speak a little bit more on this, and I have in the studio with me right here to extend on this particular conversation CP Chuks Enwanwu. CP Chuks, good afternoon and welcome to the World News at 12.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. So a couple of critics have said that there is nothing stopping the tribunal judges from declaring, the result, or actually declaring who actually, won the presidential election of February 25, and that there is no reason for them to take more time, especially with the fact that all the petitions, all the documents that have been tendered by any of the respondents who are not comfortable with how the elections were conducted has been done, all the final written addresses. There is nothing that stops the tribunal from giving its judgment. Then a couple of critics have also said that the interim is creating a vacuum for speculation, and the speculation is dangerous for the administration, for the government. The speculation of possibly a sort of monetary influence or position or whatever influence towards the judges at the election petition tribunal. And one name that came to power is Mary Odili. We do know that she has worked in the judicial system for so long. For this particular publication to have come out there, would we say that it is a deliberate act, to incite the public, or is a deliberate act to smear her image? You remember when the former 9th Senate was wrapping up, where one of the senators said that he influences his wife in some instances to help in cases with his colleagues at the Senate. So if he could boldly make such a statement on that public forum, that even while he was asked to stop, is there a possibility of any form of tendency of truth in the publication against Mary Odili, even if she had come out to deny it?
Well, something about politics and Nigeria. It's in most cases there is speculations. There is so much falsehood. Like this instance of Justice Mary Odili, Supreme Court retired judge. There is no evidence whatsoever that she has influenced the course of justice in the present presidential election petition court. So people are just being funny by connecting her with what is happening at the election tribunal.
Okay.
And that is one part of it. The other part of it is that the judges are at liberty to take time to look at all the facts before they rule out their ruling. There is no compelling reason or compelling factor that they have to give the judgment within, a time frame that is convenient or comfortable for the public.
There is actually a time frame. Yes, there's a time frame, about 180 days, which should expire by September. But a couple of critics and legal practitioners have said that it doesn't necessarily need to possibly wait till that time. They could actually, if the judicial system is as transparent as it ought to be, that it doesn't. The Nigerians are, expectedly waiting to hear.
Well, that is their own opinion. There are some others who will tell you that they don't need to be under pressure, because they have to look at every bit and item before them, so that when they are making their judgment, they would have convinced themselves that they are giving justice.
All right. Okay, so that is one in some instances, but we will continue on that while we have other stories that we need to consider in the world news. So the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SARAP, has threatened to sue the Senate President Godswill Akpabio over his alleged payment of holiday allowances. Now, Akpabio was caught on camera mistakenly revealing that an enjoyment allowance has been sent to his colleagues amid the hardship facing Nigerians. He forgot that the proceeding was being captured in live camera by the Nigerian Television Authority, and Akpabio said the money had been sent to senators to enjoy their holiday. Now, after he discovered he was on live television, he withdrew the remark. Meanwhile, reacting, the group said Akpabio would be dragged to court for such a payment while Nigerians face severe economic hardship. Now, before I read the tweet that was tweeted by SARAP, I want us to take a listen again to the statement made by Godswill Akpabio yesterday at the Senate. We had that conversation yesterday, but I want to reiterate so that we understand the perspective that SARAP is coming from.
Of the leader, and then as soon as Senator Umahi takes his oath of office, we shall rearrange the office of the leadership in order to enable all of us to enjoy our holidays. A token has been sent to our various accounts by the clerk of the National Assembly. I withdraw that statement. In order to allow you to enjoy your holiday, the Senate President has sent prayers to your mailboxes, to assist you to go on a safe journey and return. This Senate
So, CP, it is not surprising. A couple of critics have come out to say that it is not surprising that this kind of situation occurs. And then SARAP is saying that Nigerians are literally suffering. There's multi-dimensional poverty, and you are sharing monies amongst yourselves. So, in a tweet, they said, "We are suing the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, over the alleged payment of holiday allowances by the clerk of the National Assembly into the various accounts of senators, while some 137 million poor Nigerians face severe economic hardship." What's your take on that?
Well, my take on it is that that has been customary in the National Assembly. It's just that the man opened up in the gallery to say it. It is like discussing the obvious. Okay. These are things the past sessions would have been doing quietly. And I also believe it is part of the package of going to function as either a senator or a House of Representative member. Therefore, I don't see anything so special about the hues and cries everybody is raising right now. It has been their tradition Is it because the man spoke openly in the gallery? If he had kept quiet, the alert could have still gone to all of them. And if you go further and check their packages, I think something like recess allowance or something is part of it. So whatever they have distributed must have been something that has in the past been appropriated for such purposes. So it is not something that should begin to raise eyebrow. The only thing I will advise, if the government will have a listening ear, the cost of governance is outrageous. Let them look for a way to cut them down to the barest minimum and make those offices unattractive. They shouldn't use the National Assembly as their offices. That should not be their office address. They should come out, go and look for things to do for themselves, and use the time they go to National Assembly as part-time. That's what is done in some of the developing economies. Even some developed economies, it is not full-time job. If you check what they take as emoluments and allowances, with what happens in other climes, you see that Nigeria is almost the highest in the whole world. Even in American
thought that the president, in order to curtail the excesses of governance or of government, that would have been one of the first things he would have done. If he says he intends to revert the country back to a prosperous path, considering what Nigerians went through in the previous administration. But that now, he came on board and nothing has been said about it. Now God to Lakmabio goofed, or rather it was a gaffe. We cannot literally say, but it's obvious that that is what has been the practice time immemorial.
Exactly. Well, as regards the position of the president vis-a-vis this large ministerial package or something, maybe from my own thinking, the president is just being a politician. He wants to please all those who worked for him. As time goes on, the stark realities will be done on him and us, those of them in the place. He will end up shrinking those ministries.
Are you sure? Are you very certain? You have 48 ministers for 28 ministries.
He will cut down the thing. He will go back and visit Oresanye's report on removing margins on parastatal, scraping off some of the ministries.
He actually said so before the ministerial nominees that were sent. He said some ministries, departments, and agencies would be scrapped, new ones formed, and those that have similarities in terms of what their duties are will become one. Exactly. When you have one person in charge of it, one person and possibly an assistant. But when you have 48 ministers for possibly 28 ministerial positions, would we say that that is basically the reality? Will he do what he said he would do? With having to change, to have new government parastatals with a new responsibility, emerging as one, two parastatals that have the same functions, merging them as one, they become one. So we cut the cost of governance. With what is on ground, do you think that's realistic?
Well, what he's doing now, from my own perspective, is just experimental.
All right.
Experimental in the sense that, one, as he's creating new ministries, he is giving appointments to the loyal members of the party and those out of the party who have supported what is going on. Then after a while, he will tell them, look, I've tried my bit. I have given you an appointment. Let me face the reality. He will shrink and throw some of them overboard.
All right, now, so let's go on to what's currently going on in Niger. Niger is now the talk and the news. Most publications have been talking about the situation in Niger. Now, the military leaders in the Republic of Niger who seized power in a coup in July, they have formed a new government, and that's according to a decree which was, relayed on national television today. Now, the Niger's Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zeyn will lead the 21-member government with generals from the new military governing council heading the defense and interior ministries. Meanwhile, top diplomats from the United Nations, African Union, and the Economic Community of West African States will today meet. Already, they have stormed Abuja, the nation's capital, to take major decisions at an extraordinary summit on political development in the Niger Republic. Recall that the Niger military junta had disconnected diplomatic ties with Nigeria after after the ECOWAS envoy sent to the country to broker peace failed to achieve a result. Last month, a military junta toppled Niger's democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. Now, before this new government was declared yesterday, apparently the coup leaders in Niger accused French forces of freeing captured terrorists and breaching a ban in the country's airspace in an attempt to destabilize their country. And of course, France promptly rejected the allegations from Niger. Soldiers from the country's presidential guard seized power and detained Mohamed Bazoum on July 26. This triggered international condemnation and a threat of a military intervention by the ECOWAS chair in person of President. Video address yesterday, the coup leader spokesperson Colonel Amadou Abdrahmani claimed France had released 16 terrorist elements, right, who had been gathered to plan an attack on Nigerian military positions in areas along the border. I want you to take a listen to Amadou Abdrahmani, who is one of the spokespersons for the coup leaders in Niger, and possibly let's look at what his interpretation means. That is that statement he made, what it actually means for the Nigerian government and the formation of the new government that we have heard about now, and then France's brazen attempt for flying over the airspace that Niger has declared as a no-fly zone.
The council wishes to announce this on our territory. Indeed, today at around 6:30 a.m., a position of the Niger National Guard was attacked 30 kilometers from the Samaria gold site. At this moment, the toll is not yet established.
Kevin addresses following developments for us from Abuja.
So apparently with that particular development, we can hear where you see Abdurrahman, he's actually complaining about the fact that they declared a no-fly zone on their airspace, and France took advantage of it and did what they did. I need us to listen more to it, because
the council wishes to announce
it was something that disturbed quite a lot of persons.
The council wishes to announce the extremely serious events that are underway in Niger due to the behavior of French forces and their accomplices on our territory. Indeed, today at around 6:30 a.m., a position of the Niger National Guard was attacked 30 kilometers from the Samaria gold site. At this moment, the toll is not yet established.
Kevin addresses following developments for us from Abuja.
Okay, so
the council wishes to.
According to the spokesman of the military leaders in Niger, the incident happened today, this morning, around 6:30 in the morning in the Tilaberi region. This is an area where we've seen a lot of activity, militant activity from groups linked with Al-Qaeda and ISIL. And what they're saying actually was that a French aircraft took off from a neighboring country in West Africa, in Central Africa, and then cut off all communications. And they think that the French are involved in this. But again, some analysts believe that this is an area where we've seen a lot of activity from groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL. And this was feared since day one of the coup, that some members of the armed groups in the region may take advantage of what's happening. So it's not clear yet whether or not the attack was carried out by the French or by armed groups that have been busy in the area called Tilaberi in Niger.
I also want us to take a listen to Mark Smith. He is currently in France, and he needs to talk about the reason why France would actually not obey the no-fly zone declared by Niger on their airspace, and what that actually means, what they intend to create, what their interest is in, and considering the sensitive situation in Niger at the moment, if that's the right approach to take. I want us to take a listen to him.
They've provided no evidence of this, and the government in Paris has not commented so far, but they would be unlikely to comment on any military action that they were involved in while it was taking place. It's not the first time the French have been accused of violating airspace in Niger. On a previous occasion, they've denied it. There's a lot of anti-French rhetoric in that part of the world. Anti-French rhetoric is involved in the other coups that have taken place, notably in Mali and Burkina Faso, which have voiced their support for the military junta ruling Niger. But so far, From the French, no comment. There are about 1,500 French troops in at least 2 different bases in Niger, and there are American troops there as well. But no indication or that they've been involved in any military activity, and no indication or no signaling from the French or the Americans that that is taking place or is taking place.
CP Chooks, that was one of the correspondents in Paris, Bernard Smith, who is actually describing what is currently going on in Niger and France's involvement. France has denied that they did no such thing. Niger is saying that France actually disobeyed the no-fly order on their airspace, and they released some rebels who would, kind of create a sense of chaos within their strategic military positions. We know that Niger has quite a number of natural resources in there. The natural resources, they actually have oil and mining industry there. They also have uranium, they have gold, and one of the major beneficiaries of that is actually the UAE, Dubai. That is one of their major beneficiaries of the natural resource of gold, including uranium. And it may be a small population, but let's look at the impact of what is currently ongoing with, ECOWAS community, that is a community of West African states. And obviously, you have Burkina Faso, you have Mali, giving support to Niger and calling the order of the ECOWAS like, we're not listening to what you're saying. You can do whatever it is you want to do, but we're standing on the ground. Now, today, ECOWAS community members have actually stormed Abuja to meet the ECOWAS chair and president of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Some persons have said that there are some international interests who are trying to egg the president to do something drastic. And, of course, considering the economic implications that would be on the Nigerian government. But do you think that it feels like possibly the president's legitimacy is what's being questioned, or that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger does not respect the current chair of the ECOWAS? Also, do you think that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu shouldn't have taken the responsibility of being the ECOWAS chair?
Well, already President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is chairman of ECOWAS before the coup took place.
Okay.
So it is not as if
he knew.
He knew that such a thing will come up. And having found himself in that position, a lot and so much is expected of him in a situation like this. But the truth of the matter is that it is very, very glaring that there's a charter in United Nations as well as African Union that you have absolutely no reason to interfere in the internal affairs of independent states.
Okay.
So whichever way they want to do their things in Niger Republic, it is only when you are invited that you have to come. And if you are invited, they'll give you terms and areas they will need you to get involved.
Okay.
Otherwise, you leave them to do their things. Then, like the issue of France violating their airspace, if it is proven, it is highly provocative. That means they have a different motive. They are looking for opportunity to take aggression against Niger Republic, which is very, very unfair to Nigerians. Is it because their business interest is being threatened, or that Niger as a nation had come out boldly to say, look, you had overexploited us in the past, and those contracts we have with you will come to an end? Maybe they are highly aggrieved, they feel so bruised and battered that they are looking for an opportunity to move in and attack Niger Republic and possibly go in with that aggression that they will remove the whichever person or persons that are in government, the military juntas that are there presently. I think that is the target of the West.
Okay. Because
of the fact that they have lost control over the mines of uranium, gold, and all that are, scattered all over Niger Republic, that is, presently hurting and paining the Western interests. But that is not the way to get around it. They have to go back, seek for dialogue whoever is sitting in the government, whether it's a military junta or the former democracy, they should only look for a way forward and support Nigerians.
All right. So apparently, the coup has created considerable alarm, right, in Western capitals, and with good reason. So since 2020, there have been coups throughout the Sahel. For example, the strategically important belt of the hot, semi-arid land stretching across Africa just below the Sahara Desert. Now, in 2020, Mali's government fell. In 2021, the same thing happened in Sudan, Chad, and Guinea. Last year, a coup took place in Burkina Faso. Niger was seen as the Sahel's final bulwark against chaos and instability, which is a last regime standing. The United Nations had a drone base in Niger, and France has stationed troops there. It's a crucial line of defense against surging West African jihadism. Now, all of that is at risk. We do know that Nigeria currently is facing banditry. We're facing the situation with ISWAP. We had the situation as well with Boko Haram. Now, if we look at the borderline between Nigeria and Niger, Kaduna State is very close to Niger. They actually share approximately very close borderlines. Now, there have been intermarriages taking place from Nigerians in Kaduna within that arid region in the north, and those with Niger. Now, persons have criticized the president for making the statement of giving a 7-day ultimatum, otherwise there will be a military intervention, considering the close tie and the close relationship that Nigeria has with Niger. 2 days ago, I had an interview with an analyst who said that you cannot even differentiate some Nigerians with some Nigerians, especially in our army. The economic impact this would mean, the political impact as well this would mean for our structure. But do we think that the wars and the coups d'etat that have been taking place in West African countries surrounding Nigeria is a deliberate mark for the Western world to take advantage of our natural resource? And is democracy in this region, in Africa, a joke? Or it should be that we should authenticate with other means of governance rather than democracy?
Well, whatever it is bad governance, and this idea of the Sahel belt across Africa not having true democracy that reflects the wishes and aspiration of the people, that would have precipitated military interregnum and takeover of government in those states. Now, having said that, it is now a warning signal for the other ones by the coasts to sit up and do the right thing. Otherwise, the influence of what has happened across the belt, Sahara Belt, may begin to trickle down on the coastal states of West Africa in particular. That is one part of it. On the other side, concerning the issue of giving 1 week ultimatum to Niger to restore democracy in the place, I'm sure it would have been pressure from the West. Pressure from the West? Yes.
How? On who?
On ECOWAS.
On ECOWAS, for him to make that statement. You heard that Niger, there is a coup d'etat taking place in Niger, and the first thing you say is you're giving a 7-day ultimatum without going through the due diligence. For example, meeting up with the Senate. There is a procedure when it comes to things like this.
That is where I'm going. Okay. Now, he has sent a letter to Senate. What was the reaction or response of the Senate?
They denied. They declined it.
So you cannot on your own go there to do a funny thing.
Okay, so now that the situation it is the way it is, they've already declared a new regime, a new system of government, literally telling the ECOWAS that they cannot do anything.
Of course,
the people are happy with the military coup that took place. They are definitely happy with the regime there, and they say they no longer want Western powers anymore to have influence in their country. In fact, the young man who took over literally said that they don't want the hand of the Western world in anything they do. They can self-govern. They actually went to Russia to seek the support of the Wagner Group and see if they can help in terms of providing military assistance for them. So they literally told other ECOWAS communities that they can actually do without them by having alignment. But the question I'm asking you is, what does this tell on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the ECOWAS chair? And do you think this will be distracting? Because there's quite a lot going on in Nigeria at the moment. Exactly. There are other issues which he actually gave a national broadcast address on they were facing. Do we think this situation with Niger will take a serious amount of his concentration? And if things should devolve, could that be declared a state of emergency? Can a state of emergency be declared?
I don't think it will get to that point.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. You talk of state of emergency when there is actual war between Nigeria and Niger.
Okay.
Nigeria and Nigeria being the centerpiece for converging ECOWAS troops, then Nigeria will be a point, because that's the borderline between Niger and ECOWAS states.
All right.
The other ones that could have supported are already part of, they have given support to Niger. I'm talking of Burkina Faso, Mali, who has boundary borders, international borders with them. The other side is North Africa with Libya, with Algeria, with Chad, and Cameroon, and part of Cameroon. So those ones are not part of ECOWAS. The only point in ECOWAS is Benin Republic, which is a very narrow stretch, and then 7 northern Nigerian states of northeast and northwest, starting from Kebbi, Zamfara, Sokoto, down to Katsina, Jigawa, Yobe, Borno, 7 of them.
Yes.
So the people there have ties in terms of religion, in terms of language, in terms of you hardly distinguish the two sides.
CP, do you think that if these individuals in the northern region are bribed by these Nigerians to join them in whatever it is they're doing, that will be a major security collapse for Nigeria? Because if you consider the fact that there's multi-dimensional poverty being experienced by Nigerians, and that particular region is going through its own security upheaval, is there a possibility that this could widen the gap of insecurity in that region?
Definitely it will. That is why it is a situation that is very volatile. And what is expected is diplomacy and negotiation. It is not a situation where you talk of war.
But they don't want any negotiation. Yesterday, one of the members of the Secretary of State of the U.S. went to visit the Nigerians, and they declined her having access to the young man who has taken over now. And then you have the ECOWAS community of member states who have tried to have a dialogue with these individuals, and they completely declined. In fact, they severed ties. So the question now is, if they really don't want to have any conversation, why can't ECOWAS let them be?
Well, the ECOWAS have no choice. They will quietly leave them alone.
Eventually. But so if that was going to be the eventual take, why was that declaration made in the first place?
Maybe they thought it could have worked. That if you come with intimidation and harassment, they will bow and accept your terms.
Because you do know that when the situation in
South Africa to the United Kingdom, on getting to the point, because of the closure of the airspace, they had to do a U-turn and went back all the way to Johannesburg, which was almost 10 hours. They were lucky they had a full tank on the Boeing 787. And from the analysis, they couldn't stop in Nigeria to wait and see if they can reroute their flight, because the Nigerian airports have no capacity to receive Boeing 787 configuration, because they need longer runways than there's none in Nigeria that can take 787. It can only take 777 max. And the same applies to Airbus. Airbus 380 cannot land in Nigeria because of this. Those double-decker ones, they cannot. So the same thing also applied to another British Airways that was South African bound. On getting to the fringes of Niger, they had to make a turn. And they didn't want to attempt Libya because of the security implications. They went back. They did almost 8 hours.
You can imagine.
And on getting to UK, because there is a curfew around UK for now, they had to hover for 2 hours around English Channel before they were allowed to land around 4:45 a.m. in the morning.
That was risky and very dangerous.
Exactly, and that is what they are all suffering right now. Because the flight paths for most of those East Africa, South African flights to Europe comes through Cameroon, Nigeria, and pass through Niger. Because Niger has been the safe corridor for them. They cannot even use places like Mali or Burkina Faso. Those are troublesome areas that they cannot guarantee.
They are hot spots.
Yes, they are hot spots that they cannot guarantee safety for commercial flights.
All right, CP Chooks, thank you so much for being with us right here on the World News at 12. We've extended our time. So thank you as well for giving us incisive details on this analysis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, to wrap up the World News at 12 here again, at the top stories, 17 persons killed as gunmen invade a Plateau community. Also, Mary Odili denies influencing judges to favor President Tinubu. Sarab threatens to sue Akpabio over senator's holiday allowance, and Niger's military junta forms a new government. That's a wrap on the World News at 12. My name is Esther Wachuku. Good afternoon. Thank you for listening. Up next is Matters with Ikami Jude.